everyone. Welcome to another Cyber Conversation. My name is Kanti. I'm the director of the Cyber Institute. I'm also an assistant professor at Dakota State University. And today with me, I have one of the Cyber leaders, Paige. She is our social media expert, and she's also a fantastic graphic designer. If you have ever seen any of our stickers, know that she's the brains behind at least half of those. And today we have a special guest with us, Lori Brumm. Lori has always been passionate about technology ever since she was a child. She has been interested in technology from helping friends get online in the 90s to assembling early computers on wheels for hospitals. She's always been the go-to tech person in the room. Today, she leads a dynamic team of cybersecurity professionals at SimSpace, building realistic training environments that help organizations around the world stay safe online. With over 20 years of experience in IT and cybersecurity, she's worked across industries, including government, healthcare, education, and law, proving that there's no limit to where a career in cyber can take you. She has she is a strong advocate for digital privacy and believes that technology should be accessible and inclusive to everybody. She holds a bachelor's in applied cybersecurity, a long list of certification, and a heart for helping others, volunteering with causes that support women, animals, and the environment. Lori, thank you so much for being a guest on Cyber Conversations. The floor is now yours.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely intro. I'm going to go ahead and share out my screen. Just let me know when you guys can see that. Fantastic. All right, so I put together a couple slides here to share with you guys, and I do have to give a shout out to my 7 and 17-year-olds because they helped me put it together. So you might see some themes. If anybody recognizes this one, it's from Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. So in going through when I was invited to come on this podcast, I was starting to think a little bit of how did I get here and why and where and what really were the things that stood out to me. And I started to think about it. Those career days when you take your kid to work days, those were incredibly important to me. My father had a printer farm kind of like this one where he worked. And I remember walking into this printer farm and these servers and the room was so loud, but it was just so cool. And I just thought it was the neatest thing. And I'd ask him if I could change the paper. And there's these big reams of paper. And it was a lot of fun. And my mom would work nights at the hospital, and oftentimes she would take me in when there was nobody home to watch me. And I had the run of the place, and I got to see the MRI machines, and I got to see all this stuff. And if something was being taken apart, she'd be like, "Hey, I think X-rays. I think they're doing something down there." And of course, I'm like, "Oh, yep, I'm there." And I'm sure there's many hospital techs that were like, loving all the questions of a child at the time, but they were great, and I remember them so well. And also like video games. Early Atari was so cool because you took this disc and you put it in, and you had these controllers, and you could play, and you could impact change on the screen, and it was really those kind of things that just started curiosity, right? And thinking again, just the evolution that I've been a part of since the 80s. I mean, my first install was upgrading our 3.0 to 3.1, and I was 8. So empowering, our kids and our students, and not being afraid to handle those floppy disks at the time, or CDs now. And just in the last couple of years, I mean, we've seen Facebook is 21 years old, and Facebook, MySpace, Instagram, all those things have like changed how we interact with each other in such a cool way. It's really neat to think about, these emojis that we use every day have been out for like 25 years. And I love that. That's really kind of cool when you start to think about the amount of effort that goes into each and one of those small little pieces of things that have combined to be so impactful to the world around us. I mean, the fact that I've got this smartphone that's, was launched 17 years ago, and it had more computing power than what put people on the moon is kind of insane when we think about it. And AI is already 2 years old. So it's going to be amazing to see what kind of discoveries we make, shortly. And it's amazing to be a part and alive right now because, wow, the end, it's so many possibilities, and when we go through these things and we think about learning, it's never ending. And I will say again, like when I was thinking about my path, um, it might not apply to everybody right now, right? Because a lot of our institutions are now accredited, but there was a time in the early 2000s when there were tech institutions kind of popping up everywhere, but they weren't accredited. So people would go and spend money, and then they would kind of get these diplomas or these certifications that they couldn't really take anywhere, and they couldn't really do anything with them. So one of the things that I think is super important is when people are thinking about, hey, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? I absolutely love certificate programs. I love, I went to what was called PTI at the time, Pittsburgh Technical Institute, which is now Pittsburgh Technical College in 2001, and I got my associate's degree. And it was accredited. I got to learn from individuals who were in the field. I got to ask them all these really cool questions. Some of them, were individuals who worked on printers and they did the hardware stuff. Some of them were people who were trying to build databases that had security wrapped into them. And they worked around every industry from health to finance and more. Um, and, the other parts of that is getting like a certification. Some people might say, okay, certifications aren't really that important, but in my experience, they have been really, really important because it helps establish the ground base from which we know we can communicate. So in computers, we have protocols, and protocols are built off of different, and some are kind of, very verbose and exact in how they are to be implemented. And some of the RFCs are not so exact. So but our protocols are built off of these common RFCs that say, hey, thou shalt do it this way. And when we talk about certificates, it's kind of the same. So when we have CompTIA or SANS or other certificate authorities that are trusted and they've been established, they help us kind of build that baseline going forward. And then continuing professional education credits not only allow us to help maintain our certificates, keep us up to date in our knowledge, but they just help us get exposure because you can get CPEs through so many different ways. And, I just learned a product that I've been using for a very, very long time has been rebranded. And it was rebranded a year ago, but it takes a while for all that to reach marketing and then to actually get applied. And I learned that through a CPE. So it's really great to keep up on things with. And then doing those practical, like hands-on labs. Oh my gosh, some of them are a lot of fun. And some of them are so challenging and frustrating, but they're always like challenging us to learn more and to figure out what we like, that it's just imperative to make us well-rounded individuals. Because in IT and cybersecurity, there is no lack of stuff that we can learn. It's everywhere. And you can take so many different paths to get there. I know this is something that you guys talk about a lot is like how many different ways, right? And there's no linear path. There's no as the crow flies. I personally started working in movie theaters very, very long time ago. And I saw through the movie theater kind of industry revolutioning that we used to platter and splice together actual film. And one single movie could be 2, 3 containers of film. And you'd have to take and splice it and put it together, and you carry this god awful huge like platter, and you would take it to there. And by the time I started finishing working at the movie theaters, I was actually helping to upgrade our projectors because now we were getting digital, or well, I shouldn't say digital, but we were getting like DVDs with the movies on them, and they weren't these films anymore. So it was just so cool to be a part of that. Now, usually I was slinging popcorn and oil, but I got to be a part of that. And I got to be a part of taking our cashiers from just a regular electronic system to a POS system. And if you're around and if you're curious, people will look to you to do those things. I wasn't hired to do them. I was hired to be an usher, clean bathrooms, and I don't know, just do stuff like that. And I just got more and more curious. So then I started putting together films, and one thing led to another, and I'm helping to replace POS systems. In the school systems, obviously, as everybody here knows, We've gone from old style projectors that have this like light and this thing. It's really, really looks like I think when the dragons were around. But now we've got blackboards that are already integrated. They're Bluetooth. They can go straight up to the teacher's notes, and it's amazing. When I worked at a school, I was helping them upgrade their systems and just putting in one school, my school particular, Mapper St. Clair High School. We had a digital arts class, and we had everything from an old school printing press to screen printers to digital design, and it's there's just so much stuff to do there in hospitals. Cybersecurity in hospitals should go like this because everything we do in a hospital, as everybody knows, is just so impactful to human life. And when we have pacemakers that have Bluetooth capabilities in there, and yeah, Bluetooth is a little bit of like a near field thing. You have to be pretty close to be able to do it. Um, are we thinking about that? Are we protecting those devices that really help, people live and thrive? So there's a lot of opportunities in hospitals. I've actually been in the operating room, not as a well, as a patient, but not these times as a patient or a doctor, but because the systems that they needed experienced problems, and they would call me in, and I would have to get suited up and go into the OR and fix the stuff while they're in the middle of operating on people, which sounds terrifying. And yeah, it is, but it's also exhilarating and cool. And life relies on computers. Life relies on cybersecurity. When we talk about finances, every one of us has our money in a bank account. We have to have cybersecurity, right? When we talk about going and using your water, getting a drink of water from the tap, is that water protected? Is the plant protected? You go to the hospital again, is that protected? And then it's also throughout everything, the state and federal government agencies. I've worked at the FTC, the DOJ a little bit, the AOC, Architect of the Capitol. Every one of them had their own interesting problems to solve. At one point, I used to be a BlackBerry administrator, which some people might think of the fruit, rightfully so, but there was a phone that was very popular amongst professional people because it had a very tactile, cool keyboard and could allow us to send emails. And that was widely used. And so that was one of the things I did was to go and to do those things and to make sure the phone policies worked. Um, and then, of course, the DoD. Wow, there's so much opportunity in our DoD to play with cool tech, play with cool cybersecurity. As everybody knows, there's many, many different pillars of it. And DoD does many different things, but they can help keep us and other people all around the globe safe. So it's really fun to be a part of some of those projects and get that exposure. And one of the things that I think is super important is a lot of times people have the long goal of what you want to be, and that's super important to have that long goal. But when we say it's about the journey, the amount of exposure that I got through all these different places really kind of helped me to be the tech that I am today, which I'll get to in 1 second. I promise I only have like 2 more slides here, um, maybe 3, but we'll see. So there are also challenges. I'm not going to lie, having done this for 20 years, being a female in the well, more than 20 years actually, but being a female, it creates its own challenges. And the more of a complex personality and experience and um, everything that we have, the more that those challenges can just become more and more difficult, right? And we all kind of have a little bit of imposter syndrome. And to be quite honest, we joke in my team that the best techs probably all have a little bit of ADHD and anxiety, and we're all really good at picking out patterns. And there's a reason for that, right? And that's kind of we all pay attention to everything, and that's kind of where that comes from. But that can also give us challenges to deal with. Obviously, we have to challenge stereotypes and biases that people have. I know that I have been in very, very important meetings in very high up places, and I've been asked if I was getting the coffee. Uh, Spoiler, I wasn't. I was there to help them build their systems and architect some RBAC into what they wanted. But it is never kind of, it happens, right? So we always have to be ready to say, no, no, actually, I'm not here to be your secretary. Some other challenges is a rapid expansion, right? AI just came out 2 years ago, and now I'm pretty sure that my fruit at the store is probably operating off of some AI plugin if the grocers had their way. Technology sprawl, there's, as we know, no end of items that we're bringing into our house. Hey, can you connect this to your internet? Connect this to your internet. It's everywhere, which presents its own cybersecurity challenges. How many things in your home are connected to your internet, and do you really know the capabilities of them? Do they have recording? Are they taking pictures? What are they doing? So that's kind of fun. And then some other challenges, it's you can get some dysfunctional teams, and that's with anything, cybersecurity aside, everywhere you go. And you can get into some really toxic competition style. So it takes a lot of persistence, as my good friend Penny Proud there is showing off. But there are a lot of technical fruits to all of this, right? You can also get into healthy competition, capture the flags, castle be castle. You can get in a good competition with your team members. Like, oh, hey, I know you like to script Python. I like to script PowerShell. We have to solve this problem. Go. And it's a lot of fun. When you get into that point, you can empower the teams, you empower yourself and other people. We have so much enabling technology. It's amazing what we can do and what we're going to do with it. And it takes so many different points of views and so many different experiences to get to that point where we're like, hey, I think if we did this, it'd be much better. Because if somebody has never dealt with a specific issue, they're never going to think ever to make something to fix that, right? I know that I struggle a lot with dyslexia, so apparently picking out a career that had a lot of IP addresses in it was like a great move, maybe. But I have learned how to mitigate that somewhat for myself, and I've shared those techniques with people when I can. And we can protect human life. Cybersecurity and IT is one of the things that has the highest chance of protecting human life. So it's so imperative, and the work that we do is so important and impactful from everything, right? Protecting someone's identity, protecting their finances, protecting their health information. Those things all have really, really big impacts. And when you find that group that you work with, it's a good sense of belonging, right? Finding your people. So what do I do every day? I build cyber ranges, which I know some people may be familiar with, but it's kind of a weird term itself. Um, it comes from the military-esque range that you go to the range to practice your weaponry capability. And the idea behind it, and behind my company, SimSpace, is the theory of train like you fight. So if you're training to run a marathon, but you never actually go and run and never run for that distance and never run under those conditions, are you really going to be able to do the marathon? Or do you just kind of think you will, but then when the rubber meets the road, you might not really be able to do it. You might not be able to perform for many reasons, right? Practice makes progress. So I go and I talk to customers in different industries, from insurance to finance to DoD to all these different industries. And I say, what are you trying to solve? What does your everyday look like? What are the things that keep you up at night? Um, are you worried about intruders coming, like external intruders, adversaries from a different nation state? Are you worried about internal threats, right? Are you worried about insider activity going on that you want to figure it out? Are you worried about a lot of different things? Data loss? What about ransomware? What about your IT systems just went down, and where do you go from here? How do you recover that? So I talk to them. And what we do is we build an environment that looks realistic to what they have, right? If it was building a house, it would say, well, I'm going to build a house that looks like what you have, and I'm going to put the important things in it, right? It might not be really worth my time or money to put all the things in it, but I'm going to put the important things in it. And then we are going to conduct an event, and there's different kind of parts of it, but we're going to conduct an event that's going to test your people, your processes, and your tools in that house. And we might bring in specifically a live red team who is going to act like the adversary. And we're going to bring in some blue team individuals that is going to help your team, your blue team hunters, learn how to hunt for these threats and identify those IOCs, the indicators of compromise. And we are going to assess over a period of time how you guys perform. And that is actually running the marathon. That's putting on the shoes, getting on the street, and going from A to B. And a lot of times, I mean, we've done those for 24 hours. We have done multi-shift ones where some team in Virginia hands off to a team in India, hands off to a team in California, and we've tracked it throughout. All the while, we're throwing exploits at them, right? And we're hitting them hard and we're hitting their tools hard. And it's awesome because they have to work across teams to figure it out. And it's all the real threat, but no risk because you're not involving anything that you actually have. Remember, I made a copy of the house. Their house is fine. I made a copy of their environment. And it's really cool because because I use our platform all the time and I love it, I get to work across multiple teams, the engineering front end, the engineering back team, the security team, all of them to help figure out what are the things that are really meaningful to our customers. How do I make that house more realistic? How do I make that marathon more realistic? How do I make it seem like it's really, really real and people get to practice, right? And the other cool part is a lot of times customers will come to me and they'll say, hey, I want to do this cloud hybrid thing with this AI plugin with this tool over here that's not developed yet. And we get to do that. And it's a lot of times easier because if a customer works with me, they work with like one vector and then I can go get the other parts. Whereas a customer might have a more burdensome process to go through to get 12 different vendors in the same room into their development environment. So I'm one vendor, I get the other ones, and I get to put them all together. So I get all the exposure for new tech, which is awesome. Um, and I get to do it with the most amazing team and group of people ever, from my leadership to the people I have. I get up every day and I sincerely want to do the work that I'm doing. And everybody on my team, if any of them needed help, all of us would be there. And I have never in 20 years, into the last 6 years that I've been with SimSpace, I've never been able to say that. And the reason I bring that up is to say that the right leadership will absolutely empower you. The right leadership will be your biggest cheerleader. And the right team will always, always, always have your back. And if you're out there sweating and building this and building that and struggling, they're going to help you. And everybody knows that you don't judge a lobster and how well it climbs a tree. So you know that your teammate over there is really, really, really good at Linux. And that person is so great at networking. And I'm really great at Active Directory and Microsoft. So if I have a problem with Linux that I am beating my head against, I am not going to keep climbing that tree. I'm going to go over and ask the Linux person or networking. Let's say it's all working right, but I've got some routing loop and I can't figure it out. I'm going to go get my networking friend because they're going to help me. So it's really important to keep going at it, staying curious, and like just know that at some point the right team and the right leadership will make you an amazing contributor and empower you to do so much. Um, so that is basically all I have as far as my slide deck for you. I do want to invite you to come and link up on LinkedIn, so I'll just leave that up for a moment. But that is yielding the floor back to you now.
Thank you for sharing that. That was fantastic. There are so many points that you made throughout. I was like, yep, 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 yep. Because um I kid you not, I recorded another conversation just 2 hours ago, literally 2 hours ago, and we were talking about the importance of having, or the importance of employers being supportive of you having, or of them having your back, like being supportive and offering resources, offering help. And the point that you just made, I was like, yep, just talked to another guest about this morning. So
Absolutely. It is so important. It's also, as now that I'm director, right? And I started out as a senior range individual there. And I kind of went through team, and I didn't want to be a leader, by the way. they made me a leader. So that kind of just happened. And I thought, well, surely, at some point somebody will be like, hey, I want to be a leader. And I'm going to be like, yes, here's the baton, run, you got this. It just never really worked out that way. And then I went to senior management and now I'm director. And I will say one of the most important things for me is to make sure that my team is okay, that they have that
Yes.
empowerment, that they have work-life balance. Like we all play hard, we all work hard, right? Old adage, I get it. Some weeks we're putting in 50, 60 hours. That should not be the rule. That should
Yeah.
be the
The
accepted
anomaly.
because
Yeah.
yeah, because we're not going to sit here and live to work. We're going to work to live. Even though I love my job, I do also love riding horses and having time with my kids. And I
Yeah.
want to make sure my team also has that.
I get that. I really do. Because one of the questions on my list was going to be about work-life balance. Like, with such a demanding career, I'm sure because you handle so many responsibilities, how do you achieve that work-life balance? Like, what do you do, or what steps can one take to get to maybe not a perfect work-life balance, because I don't think there is one, but more
Mhm.
of a reasonable one for you?
I think, and it's funny because I think you hear a lot of the common themes about knowing what's important, right? Always keeping an eye on your high priorities because we often get so close to the wallpaper, right? You can't see what you're doing and you have to take a step back because there's a high level priority list there that this thing might seem super important, but honestly, is it on fire? Is it on fire? It might just be smoking. It might just be smoldering. If it's smoldering, it's not on fire. And if we're super busy, listen, I can have things that are smoldering all around me, but at some point I got to go, you know what? I can play firefighter tomorrow and I can try and fireproof when I get time. But right now, this is not the thing I need to do. So I always encourage my team to keep a high on the priorities. And it's so easy. We all want to please, right? We all want to do that. We all want to have work-life balance. We all get worried, oh, gee, if I don't do this, are they going to think I didn't do anything today?
Yeah.
Are they going to think I'm too slow or I'm not doing it well enough? And we all have to kind of go back to that whole, okay, A, we don't judge a lobster by the way it climbs a tree. And B, you are where you are because you are wanted and you are doing a great job. So let those demons go elsewhere. They can go talk elsewhere amongst themselves, but we just need to quiet them because if we stay here at this keyboard all day and all night, we are going to be less effective. We're going to get alert fatigue. We're not going to be able to pick out those problems. And our solutions that might seem really good in the moment when we're tired are way better in the morning.
When you have a clear head, when you've had a good night's rest,
Yeah.
when you've had a chance to refresh. I get that because it's so hard. Like you know, like you said, there may be so many different things that are smoldering right now, but then at the end of the day, you're fine as long as there's no fire. I A couple of years ago, when I first stepped into the director role, I was a full-time student and then I transitioned from a full-time student to a full-time director and faculty member all at the same time. So it was a little overwhelming for me. And I was struggling, to be very honest. I was struggling a little bit with setting boundaries, with delegating things. And
Mhm.
someone told me, you're not saving lives. Like you're not, that's not your job. You can afford to step back, you can afford to set a boundary because you are not out there in the operating room. You don't have somebody's, internal organs in your hands, literally in your hands. So you can afford to take a step back. It's okay. Like you can set boundaries, you can tell people, I will get back to you later, and you can still do that because I had such I don't know, I used to not exactly anxiety, but I didn't like to leave things undone. Like if I'd
Yep.
started something, I'd wanted to finish it, but then the cost was my own sanity, my own rest, my own brain. And I couldn't handle it. And that actually helped a lot to kind of step back and look at that from another perspective. Because honestly,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm not a doctor. I'm not out there saving lives, right? So I'm not a firefighter. it's okay for me to take a step back. So I think that kind of helped me. And since then, or even before then, I've always been a big believer of, yep, my team needs to take their time because they're students. So I always stress your first thing is your schoolwork. You need to focus on that
Yep.
first. Work, this is a part-time job. It comes second. Focus on your schoolwork, do the others next because you're here for an education. That is your purpose. You need to focus on that. So I think it kind of helps as well for a leader to understand those boundaries when they set those boundaries for themselves, when they want to, you know, what's the thing? Preach what you practice or practice what
Yeah.
you preach. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I
Well,
think
and
that kind of helps.
there's two really good things that you just brought up, like understanding the value of the solution ratio. Not everything needs 100%.
Yep.
Period. It does not. It's like I'm getting up in the morning, I'm going to the post office. Yes, I do need pants, I need a shirt, I need shoes, right? It tells me right on the door, like I need those things. I do not need to be done up. I don't need jewelry. I don't,
Yep.
a 50% solution is 100% fine, right? It works all the time. Understanding that what level is adequate to the task, because I'm building mostly ephemeral ranges, right? I'm helping to achieve these goals. When I do that, and when I did this with the hospital, when I did this with other things, the ratio matters. In the operating room, I have to ensure I fix that system 100% of the way. Period.
Yep.
There's nothing. But 70% solution is usually fine. And then we can say, did you actually like that? Did you use it? Do you want me to improve upon it? And that's important because a lot of times we forget to ask, wait, do we really need this widget to do that? Or did you really just need
Yeah.
it to do this? Because I'm spending a lot of time on that, and this is actually where we need to be. So that's really, really important to kind of hone in on and for your sanity and your work-life balance.
Yeah, exactly. Um, with that said, I do have a list of other questions that we would like to ask of you.
Fire
So,
away.
kind of going back to what we just talked about, you've had experience in a wide variety of industries. You've worked healthcare, finance, government. Based on your experience, based on what you've seen so far, what was the biggest shift in cybersecurity that you've witnessed since you started your career? And along the way, how did you adapt as new threats, new technologies, new uh, methodologies? They keep emerging. So how do you adapt to all of that?
So the I will say, back in the mid 90s, when I was on AOL, like when it was first released as a client on Windows 95, I was just tooling around because I spent all my time in this virtual world. I thought it was the coolest thing. There was chat rooms, there was DMs. You could DM bomb people, you could email bomb people, which was just sending massive amounts of IMs and stuff so that they couldn't get in, which was only done for individuals who were soliciting stuff that they shouldn't be soliciting, right? So we kind of figured that out, a couple of friends and I did. And it was like, this guy isn't leaving me alone. And back in the day, you couldn't block people at first. You couldn't do that. So it was like, how do you protect yourself? And I think that one of the things from that is I love that we can now block people easily. Um, Now, the other downside of that is there's so many different vectors to try to block them on that you have to go to, everywhere. Even MySpace is still live, right? So you could technically have to go back to MySpace and block them. But I like that there is that part. I will say that on AOL initially, I had stumbled upon the database that they had all of their finance in, and my dad didn't believe me. And at that point, they had a field for his social security number, which I obviously, as a child, would have no way of knowing, right? I think I was like 10, 11, 12. I would have no way of knowing what his social was. So I wrote it down. And every day I gave him one number of his social security number. And on the third or fourth day, he's like, son of a, and he and I were talking about it. He goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a credit card that's only for AOL, only for online things, so that if somebody gets a hold of that database, they don't have my credit card information. So in the early 90s, or mid 90s, I learned that it's like, oh, that's a really good idea. We should A, be protecting our database. B, do they really need his social and everything else in there? C, his finance, his credit card should only be for online stuff and not other stuff. And it should have a small limit on it so that if it gets popped, it's fine, right? It's only enough to do XYZ online. And I've seen that kind of change because now I have Navy Federal and they are so good at what they do that let me just tell you, like I travel through Delaware and I buy wine. So those two things are true. I was going from where I lived in Maryland at the time up to Connecticut. So I was passing Delaware. I'd stop for pizza in Columbia, Maryland, and somebody popped my credit card, right? This is how good Navy Federal is. I got on the road that night and I was driving up to Connecticut. And I get to Connecticut and I get a call from Navy Federal. And they said, did you just use your credit card in Delaware about an hour ago or so? And I was like, no, I didn't. They had caught that. And I mean, that route is very close. Would I have been buying wine? Yes, that's in my purchase stuff. So seeing that evolve over my career, like how good that is, the protections, it's not perfect, but I love that protection because it protects the average individual who might not know how to protect themselves. So I love that. And I forget the second part of your question. I'm so sorry, but I think I may have answered it.
Yeah, it's just how do you adapt to new threats, new technologies?
I always think to myself, what would be the way that Hollywood would stylize this? Because if we think of it that way, we will come up with the most ridiculous way
Yeah.
to exploit whatever it is. And that's what I protect against, as well as all the smaller ones. Because if we think like Mission Impossible exploit
Uh-huh.
and you protect
Uh-huh.
yourself, then you're like, okay, all this other stuff is probably good too. So I know that
That's
sounds silly,
actually
but
such a no, that's such a good way of looking at it because we fixate as cyber people, we fixate on the smaller things. We're like, okay, once we fix the smaller things, the big thing shouldn't come to pass. But working in the other way around, while figuring out what could be the most unimaginable situation possible, you're potentially solving everything else along the way. That's such a good perspective to have. I love that.
it's helped. It's helped. Y2K is what actually taught me that because going through Y2K, I was like, whoever thought this would be the issue? And I was like, oh, okay. Like we need to future-proof ourselves because I remember the eve of Y2K, my mom was like, oh my God, the hospital might shut down and people might die and finances and
Oh.
all this stuff. Like it was,
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys remember, I'm guessing not because you seem much, much younger than I am. It was intense. It was like, am I going to wake up tomorrow and there's going to be a world? And I always thought, okay, like I need to future proof stuff. Like what is the most ridiculous thing? Like how long is this thing going to be alive? I'll tell you what, there are systems running our public services, our DoD, our whatever, the core infrastructure to Verizon, to all of this. That stuff is living way longer than anybody ever intended it to
Yeah.
do. Um,
Hmm.
so in my mind, it's like how what is the most egregious thing is gonna befall this? And if I figure that out, maybe I'll be a little bit future proof.
Yeah. That's again, I will say this again and again. That's such a good way of looking at it because Hollywood does have this way of making everything in cyber seem so glamorous, so fashionable all the time. It's really not. So if they can, if you think from their perspective, like what's the one thing that we could do that will make people watch this movie, watch this TV series, and we could, make a bunch of money out of it, probably somebody else on the bad actor side is also thinking of it. So it's a safe bet. So you had mentioned earlier that you initially never wanted to be in a leadership role, but now that you are, right, you've held roles both in the technical side and now on the leadership side as well. And your role includes consulting, network administration, range engineering, and more. So, what skill or what kind of mindset helped you successfully transition between all of these roles?
That's a really good question. And honestly, I have to say, I think it's my neurospiciness that helps me because I don't get to just wear one hat, right? I don't get to pick like today I'm going to put on this shirt and today I'm just going to be a director. Like that doesn't happen. And in any good shop, you're willing to take the garbage out on Monday and brief the CEO on Tuesday, whatever it takes. So I think context switching is really, really helpful to go between those different things and to juggle those things. But that's not a capability everybody has. Some people are very linear workers. Some people get like super hyper focused on one thing. So I know for myself, I have the tendency to get super hyper focused and, knock out a 20-page document in like 5 minutes. That sounds a lot like legalese. Um, it's not really, I don't know if it's a good skill or not, but I tend to have some things built in place. It's like, okay, Lori, you've been sitting here. How long do you think you've been sitting here? And so I've gotten to the point where I am most productive by like realizing how much time I'm doing things. Not that I'm logging my time, because I have difficulty. If I actually put in a ticket and then I go do it, I don't want to do it anymore. So I have that, that difficulty. So I don't necessarily log my time, but I am aware of it. And that helps me say, okay, Lori, you've spent 20 minutes on this problem, like this email. Is that adequate? Like, is that too much? I think this is good enough. I think you've wordsmithed it enough. So I think by kind of policing my time better, I've made myself become a better context switcher because I'm not giving myself the opportunity to become time blind and then just lose myself for 8 hours in a script. And then I come up to surface and it's like there's five fires and three alarms and there's, emails and phone. And it's like, oh, oops. So I think for me personally, just doing that part of it has helped with the time management piece of it, which has helped me be more aware. And I think others benefit like that too.
And time management, honestly, people think it's so easy, but it's not. It's really not. It's so hard.
It is. I think that's one of the more difficult things. How long would you say this task took you? It took me somewhere between 20 minutes and 20 hours. Like, I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And then coming back to certifications, you've earned cybersecurity certifications through the years. And do you have a favorite amongst all of those?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I don't know because I started with the A plus certification back in 2001 and I kind of just leveled them up along the way. I do like that the CISSP does a lot of different disciplines in different areas. So it's not quite so focused on one thing or another. So I really, really appreciated that. I do. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Today is voting, so go vote if it's near you. Today is a local voting day, which means that the schools are out because it's voting. So
Hmm.
my youngest just ran in with the walkie-talkies that I gave him today to play with. So I apologize. But I did really enjoy the GX certs. One of them was really cool was GGrid. And it talks about like our power grids and our ICS systems and nuclear things. All these different systems is really, really cool. And the class comes with an actual simulated system that you get to set up and then you get to actually run do like code on and it's it's a lot of fun. So I really did enjoy that one because it was hands-on and it was getting to deal with it, dealing with step down units and looking at how the power grid works. I thought that was a lot of fun. So I have to say it's one of my favorite. I think that's one of my favorite ones so far. I will say the CISSP is very widely used and looked at, so it's probably one of the more reputable ones as far as being on requirements.
So your role, right, it requires that, you work with teams from different industries. So what's the most surprising cybersecurity blind spot that you've ever seen in a non-tech industry?
So I think going back to the hospital thing, give me 1 second. I'm so everything is exploding, right? When you work from home, then you have to also contend with the two kids and the dogs and the all the things. I think that in the medical field, I was very, very surprised when I realized that, for instance, the example that I said earlier about pacemakers, that they have like Bluetooth enabled and that you can connect with them and you can change the pace of somebody's heart
Yeah.
through
Mhm.
the Bluetooth connection. Like
Yeah.
that just blows my mind because I'm like, whoa, did you ask anybody about this? Like, ask one person, and you don't even need it. Have you guys ever seen Along Came Polly, or is that before you guys' time? Okay. You don't even need somebody who's like a cybersecurity person. Just get like your most OCD friend who doesn't like to take risks or always has like a sheet in
Yeah.
front of them where they're checking off things. Ask that person, hey, so if I had this device and I'm putting it in someone's body and I'm using Bluetooth to change it, what do you think? Just ask that question, just one person. So
Yeah, the
I think
first time I
that
read that article, it just blew my mind. Like, why does a pacemaker need Bluetooth? Like, what is the functionality? What was the purpose? Did you not, literally what you just said, did you not discuss it with anybody else? And if you did, were they all okay with it? It just doesn't make any sense.
no, no. So I think that one is still like the most glaring one because it's so impactful. And obviously like in hospitals at large, there's a huge gap for cybersecurity. But there is too when we talk about the public water. We talk about, all sorts of public systems. When we talk about even just the difference between my local municipality and what they offer versus Flint, Michigan, or somewhere in Oklahoma, like just a disparity between the level of protection provided against like the water system, this system, the power, any of it, these very fundamental life systems. There's just such a huge gap there that we need to address. And being on the ground floor of some of those places and implementing some of those protections, it's very near and dear to my heart just how big that gap is and how much we need to integrate cybersecurity and do everything we do and make it so accessible that it's just second nature for people. They don't even have to think about it. It's like when you go out and it's cold, you don't have to go, should I wear a jacket today? It's like 10 degrees. Like unless you're from like Alaska or like, I don't know, someplace in Michigan, that's not even a thought. It's just you do that. You just put on a jacket, you get in a car, you put on a seatbelt. I just we need to get more second nature about how we implement cybersecurity and how we think about it because bolting it on after the fact is a little bit difficult. Baking it in is much easier.
It kind of like ties into if you've heard of privacy by design and Kavukian's privacy by design, you build it into the product, not as an afterthought, not as a second thought. You build it into it.
Absolutely.
Um, so what are some of the challenges that you have faced in your career and how have you navigated them?
So, being a female, again, I think I said it earlier, like the amount of individuals who have been like, "Oh, you're the secretary, right?" have been numerous. And some of them have been good-natured about it when I'm like, "No, I'm the architect." I had one gentleman who was pretty high up in the government go, oh, how do you like your coffee? And then he went and got coffee. Um, so he handled that pretty well. But I have gotten to the point that I don't just smile and laugh anymore. I used to, and I think we're taught by nature to kind of be that way, to be unassuming and small and to be apologetic and say I'm sorry or to make room for other people. And I don't really do that anymore. And I actually started not doing that at SimSpace, which I've been there for 6 years, because I realized that if I let them speak over top of me, if I let them interrupt me, if I let them be rude, they're going to keep doing that. And they're not going to do it to just me. They're going to think that's acceptable behavior to do to everybody. And as soon as I started thinking, wow, it's not just me, they're going to do it to other people. They could do it to the intern, they could do it to whomever. That became unacceptable to me. And that was where I found my courage to be like, hey, what did you just say to me? Because I think you said this. And if that's what you said, I really think that we have an issue. And so I learned to be more confrontational, which again kind of goes against some the way society kind of teaches us how to be, honestly. Um, but I think it's very much so the right thing for the moment.
Yes, I think especially women going into technology, like you kind of need to do that to establish yourself, to make yourself present.
Hmm.
Um, so on to the next question. What do you think is or are the most important qualities of a successful cybersecurity professional, and how can younger girls develop these qualities?
Curiosity. I think curiosity is the the winner because when you're curious, you're invested, you're passionate, you're interested. And when we are those things, we tend to produce our best results, right? And at first, it might seem really weird to be curious and it might seem almost forced. Like, um, a silly example, my son brought me this little seashell home, right? He was scuba diving in Hawaii and he brought this for me. And my other son came and he was looking at it. He's like, "Oh, okay, it's broken. Why do you want that? Because it's not perfect." And so we started talking about it. And I said, "Well, what are your questions about this?" And the more that we talked about it, the more that he started thinking about the material that it's made out of and what may have lived in it and he got like more and more excited. And it went from it being just, "Oh, it's just a broken seashell," to he's like, "Oh, well," and all of a sudden he's off and running about all these different things and these fossils and these ideologies and the way sediment is. And he learned to be curious in that moment. So I think curiosity is one of the by far winners because accepting the sky is blue, okay, yeah, the sky is blue, but why is it blue is going to tell me way more than accepting a literal fact. So um, I think I would tell everybody to be curious and not just be like, "Oh, that alert doesn't mean anything. We always see it." Okay, well, that's your status quo. That's not my status quo. I want to know why.
And I think curiosity helps us not just, at work, but even in general, you have to be curious. You need, I mean, not a necessity for everybody, obviously, because there are some people who are pretty content to just accept the facts and move on. But to learn more things, to, improve your knowledge, to understand how different things work, you need curiosity. You need to be curious.
Yes, 100%.
Unfortunately, we are almost out of time, so I will wrap up with one last question, which I think kind of ties into the previous one. But what advice would you give to all the young people that are watching this video?
I would say that the whole adage of eat the elephant one bite at a time is really good advice, and it's really, really how you should do things. Um, but the other side of that is you could eat the elephant with hot sauce because at some point it's got to be fun, it's got to be interesting to you, and there's going to be a lot of stepping stones you have to go through. You can't just snap your fingers and be like, "Haha, I've got the certification and now I'm an expert." It doesn't work that way. um, at least not for most of us. Maybe some people can pull that off, but the battle scars that you get from each battle, those are the ones that harden and teach you, and the experience that breeds wisdom. Those are the things that really make the difference. And so I know this sounds weird, but when you're presented with hard problems, when you're presented with something that won't solve itself, that you can't Google your way out of, you can't chat GPT your way out of, whatever it is, those are gifts because you will figure out a way to solve it, make it better, prevent it from happening next time, and live with it for now. And you will find out all those things and what level that lives on. Where does that stay? And it'll make you a better tech person for it because next time you're going to ask either the question about it or, "Hey, do I actually need to do this?" or whatever it is. So I know they say enjoy the journey. Sometimes it's really hard to enjoy the journey because sometimes it just sucks. Sometimes that is what it is, and there's no amount of motivational posters and positivity that's going to make it unsuck. But the battle scars that we gain are gifts. It's just like feedback. Feedback is a gift. The battle scars are a gift because someday you're really going to need those. So I would say embrace those things as they happen and be grateful. and try not to get lost in frustration because they're going to happen. Either if you're on your couch and you're not going anywhere, okay, then they won't happen to you. But if you're actually out and doing things, it's going to happen. So embrace it and then be like, okay, well, that wasn't really fun to stay up for 48 hours to fix that issue, but it won't happen again. And here's why. So that's the biggest takeaway I would have.
That's amazing because what you said about the journey, people always say that the journey matters, like you will push through, you will get to it. Sometimes it's hard. It you need there's no other way to think of it. There's no motivation that can help you unless you feel like, yes, I have to get through the other side. I just need to do it. And you push through some inner, I don't know, inner strength, inner power, I guess. But you just have to push through because not always the journey has to be fun. Not always does it have to be motivational. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's just too difficult. It's not enjoyable. So that was very well said. Once again, Lori, thank you so much for being a guest on Cyber Conversations. We've greatly enjoyed having you here.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. And thank you for accepting me as a tech, as a mother, as a woman, as a person, and my entire personality, my two dogs and my kids. I know they made a quick appearance. So I appreciate you guys so much. And thanks for having me.